Coming up on 5 Minute News. Trump attorney accuses Pence of lying about election. Conservative groups try to block Biden's student loan forgiveness. And study says sovereigns at risk of downgrade by climate change. It's Monday, August 7. I'm Anthony Davis. Donald Trump's defense attorney claims the former president never asked Mike Pence to overturn the will of the voters in the 2020 election, but only wanted the former vice president to pause the certification of votes to allow states to investigate his claims of election fraud. Those baseless claims had already been rejected by numerous courts. Speaking on several Sunday morning news shows, Trump attorney John Lauro said Trump was within his First Amendment rights when he petitioned Pence to delay the certification on January 6, 2021. Pence, who like Trump is seeking the Republican nomination for president in 2024, flatly rejected that account during an interview, saying that Trump seemed convinced as early as December that Pence had the right to reject or return votes, and that on January 5th, Trump's attorneys told him, "We want you to reject votes outright." The 45-page indictment details how people close to Trump repeatedly told him he had lost and there was no truth to his claims of fraud. In one encounter days before the riot, Trump told Pence he was too honest after the vice president said he didn't have the authority to reject electoral votes, the indictment says. Former allies of Trump have said Trump knew he lost but spread false claims about fraud anyway. After he failed to convince state officials to illegally swing the election, Trump and his allies recruited fake electors in swing states to sign certificates falsely stating Trump had prevailed. Meanwhile, U.S. prosecutors flagged a threatening social media post from Trump in a late-night court filing on Friday, arguing that it suggests he might intimidate witnesses by improperly disclosing confidential evidence received from the government. On his Truth Social site on Friday, Trump said, "If you go after me, I'm coming after you." A day earlier, he pleaded not guilty to charges that he orchestrated a criminal conspiracy to try to reverse his 2020 election loss. Two conservative groups are asking a federal court to block the Biden administration's plan to cancel $39 billion in student loans for more than 800,000 borrowers. In a lawsuit filed on Friday in Michigan, the groups argue that the administration overstepped its power when it announced the forgiveness in July, just weeks after the Supreme Court struck down a broader cancellation plan pushed by President Joe Biden. It asks a judge to rule the cancellation illegal and stop the Education Department from carrying it out while the case is decided. The suit was filed by the New Civil Liberties Alliance on behalf of the Mackinac Center for Public Policy and the Cato Institute. The Education Department called the suit a desperate attempt from right-wing special interests to keep hundreds of thousands of borrowers in debt. It's part of a wave of legal challenges Republicans have leveled at the Biden administration's efforts to reduce or eliminate student debt for millions of Americans. Biden has said he will pursue a different cancellation plan after the Supreme Court decision, and his administration is separately unrolling a more generous repayment plan that opponents call a backdoor attempt at cancellation. The conservative groups say Biden's plan undercuts public service loan forgiveness. The Mackinac Center and Cato Institute say they employ borrowers who are working towards student loan cancellation through the program. They say Biden's action illegally accelerates progress towards relief, diminishing the benefit for non-profit employers. A global failure to curb carbon emissions will lead to rising debt servicing costs for 59 nations within the next decade, according to a study that simulated the economic impact of climate change on current sovereign credit ratings. Among them, China, India, the United States and Canada could expect higher costs as their credit scores fall by 2 notches under a climate-adjusted ratings system, the study published in the Management Science Journal on Monday found. Rising debt costs could be just one extra facet of the overall economic damage, which climate change is already causing. Insurance giant Allianz estimates that recent heat waves will already have shaved 0.6 percent points off global output this year. While ratings agencies acknowledge the vulnerability of economies to climate change, they have so far been cautious in quantifying those risks in their ratings exercises because of uncertainties about the likely extent of the damage. A downgrade to 59 sovereigns emerged from a so-called RCP 8.5 scenario of emissions that keep rising. By comparison, 48 sovereigns experienced downgrades between January 2020 and February 2021 during the turmoil of the COVID-19 pandemic. If the planet manages to stick to the goal of the Paris Climate Agreement, with temperatures held under a 2-degree rise, sovereign credit ratings would, under the simulation, see no impact in the short term and only limited long-term effects. A worst-case scenario of high emissions through to the end of the century would, on the other hand, result in higher global debt servicing costs, rising up to the hundreds of billions of dollars in current money, the model found. These findings come as regulators around the world seek to better understand just how much damage to economies and the global financial system to expect from climate change. 5-Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.